Thanks everybody for coming today. So our topic today is a new industry-first AI-based toolkit for identifying child-directed apps. Pixalate is an ad fraud verification platform that is also focused on children's privacy. And today I'm going to be talking about the new tool that we have introduced that helps assess whether or not apps are child-directed and also whether or not they are high risk for a potential COPPA violation. So there's currently a real bipartisan groundswell of support for enhanced children's privacy regulations. President Biden mentioned the issue of children's privacy in his State of the Union address, highlighting in particular the issues of data collection as well as targeted advertising to kids. He cited one particular study which found that online advertising firms hold approximately 72 million data points on the average 13-year-old. And he really called on Congress to come together to pass some type of enhanced regulation that can address these issues of data collection and targeted advertising. So the bottom line here is that publishers, advertisers, and all the companies in the ad tech industry are facing really increased accountability to comply and to protect children's privacy, in particular to comply with COPPA. COPPA is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act enforced by the FTC. And so there's also likely at this time going to be sort of an enhanced effort by the FTC to continue with its COPPA enforcement. So the challenge that we faced here is identifying whether or not apps are child-directed in this complex ad tech environment. So the programmatic advertising guidelines called OpenRTB provide for an optional COPPA flag. So a publisher has the choice to indicate that they are child-directed by setting the COPPA flag. So that's visible in the bid stream, and other players in the ad tech ecosystem would recognize that the app is child-directed. One of the issues with that, first of all, is it is optional. Second of all, the publishers face sort of a financial disincentive to set the COPPA flag, because essentially by indicating that they are child-directed, the responsible ad tech players in the ecosystem are very likely going to block serving ads on that particular site or app. And then as a result, of course, there's going to be likely a decrease in income and revenue generated by advertising when there's no longer targeted ads being served there. Another really critical issue is that the app stores, so Google and Apple, do not make this easy at all. So the app stores do not indicate whether or not apps are child-directed as that term is understood under COPPA. They do not require, for example, app developers to indicate what age they are targeting and then place that information in the app store for other companies to see or parents to see. So really what they do, both Google and Apple, is simply apply a content rating, but as you can tell by the name, that rating is indicative merely of the level of objectionable content in the app and provides zero information about who the app is targeting. And then finally, one of the other great challenges is just the sheer volume of apps that are out there. There's somewhere over 5 million apps between the two app stores right now. So making this assessment of whether or not apps are child-directed or not in a manual manner is simply, first of all, overwhelming and rather burdensome. So this is what was driving us to look to find an automated solution to this issue. So just again, this may be a reminder to this crowd, but the way that a company, a third party, or a company in the ad tech space would be liable under COPPA is if they have actual knowledge that they're collecting information from users of a child-directed site or app. And there's sort of two possibilities of how an ad tech company would obtain actual knowledge under COPPA. So first of all, as I was talking about OpenRTB and the setting the COPPA flag. So if a publisher of an app sets the COPPA flag, that is indicating to the ad tech company that they are in fact child-directed, and that imputes actual knowledge to the ad tech company. The other way that actual knowledge can be imputed to the company is where an employee of the ad tech company, conducting manual review of apps, recognizes the child-directed nature of the app, and therefore that imputes actual knowledge to the ad tech company. And that we just saw an example of that in the FTC's OpenX case. So that was a COPPA case against an ad network. And in that case, the complaint alleged that OpenX had a system in place for manual review of apps, and that they, because they had this system in place, had actual knowledge that hundreds of apps that were in their ad network were in fact child-directed, and yet they continued to collect persistent identifiers and residential IP information for the purpose of serving targeted ads. The tool that Pixalate has introduced is an automated assessment that is really guided by the factors that are laid out in the COPPA rule for what makes an app child-directed or not. There's a number of factors that are laid out in the rule, such as use of animation, activities and features that would be attractive to children, etc. And so what we did was create an automated mechanism for assessing whether or not apps are child-directed. And it relies on a number of different pieces of information. So we're looking at what category the app is in the App Store. So for example, most kid apps we found are in the games or education categories. We're also looking at subcategory information. Additionally, we are using the content rating to a certain degree. So as I said at the onset, the content rating does not directly indicate who the app is targeting, but it does convey some information about the app. And so some apps that have a content rating for everyone, as opposed to 18 plus, for example, are more likely to be child-directed. So that's also factored in. We then created a child-directed, like a child keyword list. So this is a proprietary list of hundreds of words that are child-directed. So think, for example, like rainbow, unicorn, pony. These types of words we've tested to indicate how accurate they are in assessing whether or not an app is child-directed. And so in an automated manner, we are taking the keyword list and searching the app title and the App Store description for those words. And so it's really this combination of category information, content rating, and the child-related keyword list that are applied in an automated manner to make this assessment. And so all of this information is available for free on Pixalate's website. You can search any app, and it's ratings.pixalate.com. And when you enter the name of the app, it will indicate what Pixalate's automated assessment deemed the likely audience to be. So either child-directed, which includes the mixed audience category, which is apps where a portion of their audience is children under 13, or general audience. So we're either labeling it as child-directed or general audience. And then there's a dynamic explanation for each app that indicates, for example, it will say, this app was in the games category. The content rating was everyone, and it had child-related keywords. So it will indicate why under the automated assessment it got placed in that audience category. The other thing, so there's sort of a second prong to the assessment. So first of all, we indicate the likely audience, and then we apply a COPPA risk score of low, medium, high, or critical. And that score indicates the likelihood of a potential COPPA violation. And that is based on a number of factors. First of all, we are searching every app to find whether or not there is a privacy policy. So whether or not the privacy policy is detected is one of the factors in that risk assessment. We also are looking to see whether or not the app is transmitting residential IP information, whether or not it's passing geolocation information, and whether or not the app has sensitive permissions. And so it's those factors combined that give the app the rating of low, medium, high, or critical. If an app is assessed to be general audience under our automated assessment, then it will have a low COPPA risk violation score. The other aspect that we've incorporated into our COPPA compliance tools is a privacy policy search tool. So we have over 1 million privacy policies available on our website. This is at ratings.pixalate.com/search. And these privacy policies can be searched really in any way, but the way they help facilitate a company's COPPA compliance is you can search and jump right to the portion of the privacy policy that touches on that would get to whether or not the app is child directed. So of course it's not deterministic. If the privacy policy says kids under 13 can't use this app, of course that is still a relevant factor and something that a ad tech company that is responsibly reviewing apps would perhaps want to take a look at. So we've tried to facilitate that process with this database of privacy policies, which we are constantly adding to, but at the time there's approximately 1 million privacy policies there. We just recently put out a report, so it covers Q4, and it's basically a COPPA scorecard where we compared the Google Play Store to the Apple App Store for various factors that relate to the child-directed issue. So first of all, we found that between Google and Apple, under Pixalate's automated assessment, there were approximately 380,000 apps that were assessed to be child-directed. And that was about 9% of the apps in the Apple App Store and about 7% of the apps in Google Play. There were a couple of other interesting findings. There are over 12,000 child-directed apps that access personal information but had no detectable privacy policy. We also found, this one was particularly interesting to me, that the majority of the child-directed apps, 63% of the child-directed apps, had no country listed for the app developer. So Pixalate was unable to detect the country for the app developer. So that's a pretty large number of apps where it's unclear what country they are coming from. We found that 40% of the child-directed apps are accessing personal information, and 22% of the child-directed apps in the Apple App Store had no detectable privacy policy. So that's really a huge number there in the Apple Store. Google's number was significantly lower there, so sort of won on that particular factor that we were assessing for. So I covered, I think already, the factors that go into our automated assessment, both the audience assessment as well as the factors that go into the risk violation assessment. The other thing that we've incorporated is manual review. So we have a trust and advisory board. This is made up of educators, and these are people who are quality checking Pixalate's automated assessment and making their own assessment guided by the factors laid out in the COPPA rule as to whether or not apps are child-directed or general audience. And so the manual review can override the automated assessment in instances where they're not matching up. And again, I mean, the manual review, just because of the time involved and whatnot, it's only going to be one portion of the apps, given that there are 8.5 million apps that we have assessed. And just to touch on that discrepancy between the number I gave at the beginning about there being 5 million apps in the Google and Apple app stores, the reason we have 8.5 million assessed is that we have also assessed apps that are delisted. And as you know, many apps get delisted and then relisted, and so we've applied the assessment to those apps as well. I wanted to just conclude by pointing out the places you could go to get more information. Again, any app can be searched for free to determine whether or not Pixalate has assessed the likely audience to be child-directed or general audience at ratings.pixalate.com. The privacy policy search tool is also free and available on our website. Again, over 1 million apps available, over 1 million privacy policies available there to be searched. And that's at ratings.pixalate.com/search. The report that I mentioned, the COPPA scorecard report, is available on our website on the report section. We also have a number of other child-directed app reports that may be of interest. The methodology that I described it in very general terms today, just for the sake of time and whatnot, but we have a full methodology that's open and publicly available to review that describes the methodology in much more detail than I went into today. And we also have more information about the Trust and Safety Advisory Board that we have in place to do manual review of apps. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be up here and I'm happy to answer them. And please visit our booth, the Pixalate booths over there in the corner, and happy to talk with anyone. So thank you.